Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of an extension of time for a heritage incentive grant for the Mackenzie and Willis building, as it is known. Is that moved by
Happy to move.
Councillor Johansson, seconded by Tim Scandrett?
Are we actually reasonably confident that something will happen here?
Who's the staff and responsible for this? Up to the table.
Wasn't at the community committee meeting. Are we reasonably confident that something will happen on this site?
Yes, I think we are confident that something will happen here.
This ties in nicely to some other issues later on in the agenda, but we did feel that as a council it is really important to meet with Sarah CCDU to discuss the future. It is concerning that we seem to keep rolling over this grant year after year while we're waiting for some certainty over this part of the designated frame. You will note in the newspaper that apparently government are lifting designations in some areas within the frames in the central city, and so, you know, if it's designated, we have to have ministerial approval for any work, so it's really up to the minister. So therefore it's really important that we actually have an opportunity to discuss what is going on in regards to this facility. So I'm very supportive of the second part. I think what we didn't want to do as a committee is give a disincentive for the facade to be saved if it could be saved. So we were relatively relaxed about extending the time frame because we wanted to send the signal that this was an important facade that we wanted kept if possible, and we didn't want to be sending a signal that it should be at risk if we could help it. So, but we did see that this was really two important parts of this report, and that second is that we do meet with Sarah CCDU to talk through what their view is on this.
Yep. Vicky?
Just a couple more questions, if I may. No problem with the recommendation, but just a couple of heritage-related issues. Just further down from Mackenzie and Willis in High Street is a building that was bought by one of the heritage organisations and then burnt down, and is becoming kind of the centre of earthquake tourism for here's what you shouldn't do. So first question, is anything or can anything be done about improving that site? And secondly, there is a pile of heritage rubble on the corner of Colombo and Brome that annoys me every time I see it. Is there any way of...
Annoys you? Drive past it with the minister.
Okay, well, there you are, on the same page.
Totally on the same page.
Is there anything that we can do about perhaps giving that back to whoever owns it?
Okay, with regards to the first one about the building next to Mackenzie and Willis, which is the former Billings building, the catch about that site is that it is structurally linked to Mackenzie and Willis, and so at the moment we've been discussing with Sarah, and they're very committed to getting the Mackenzie and Willis facade, the building behind the facade cleared, and the stabilisation of the facade finished and completed so that it's fully done, and then we can look at clearing the neighbouring site once the Mackenzie and Willis building is stabilised, because until that work is finished, because of the structural links between the two, you can't deal with the neighbouring site, but then that is next on the list.
So any likely timetable?
I'm not entirely certain of the exact timetable, but I know that it is a focus for Sarah in the immediate future, is my understanding. That's what they're telling us. And not to get rid of it, but to get it stabilised and get that site sorted.
But we could get an update as part of that meeting.
Absolutely. The pile of rubble, I don't have an exact answer for this one. I know it's complicated in that council held the insurance for it, but didn't own the site. And I know there's been discussions, ongoing discussions, I think, on that site. I'm not exactly sure where they're at the moment. My team leader has certainly been involved.
Next CEO's report.
Yeah,
that okay?
I think
Thank you
if we
very
could get an update, I've actually seen an update quite recently, and it would be quite good to have that on the agenda for next week. Yep, so is there any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.